My marriage was about 6 months old at that time. A bolt of lightning struck my otherwise maintained life. My husband forced me to take care of my father-in-law, who had become bedridden as a result of an accident. This was the first experience for me. I struggled with caring for my father-in-law. Then my husband said to me, "We're going to relax in Hawaii, and you look after my father." My husband and my mother-in-law left for Hawaii, leaving me behind. They still didn't know what kind of tragedy their decision would cause later on. Mary is my name, and I am 30 years old. I've always enjoyed cooking, so after graduating from college, I went to work for a major restaurant chain. I am now in charge of developing new products in the planning department. 8 years after starting there, I met Tom, who later became my husband. 2 years ago, I went to my favorite Japanese pub all by myself. For that day, I sat at a counter, and Tom was sitting next to me. We found we were the same age through a conversation with the pubmaster. We had a nice chat and exchanged contacts. Tom began inviting me to dinner on a regular basis, and we began spending time alone together. He was upbeat and funny, and I found myself drawn to him. He appeared to be the same way, and we started dating. Naturally, we got married 6 months ago after a year of dating. We are currently enjoying living together in an apartment located between our workplaces. I sometimes cut corners on housework because we both have work, but Tom always smiles and says, "You don't have to be perfect at housework. I'm just happy being with you." I wish I took time to prepare dinner as well, but I'm happy just to be able to have dinner with the person I love, I believe. "So, thank you," I said. Tom is always so gracious. "Only to you, I like to treat the people I like nicely. I'm so happy to be your wife." "Me too. I'm really happy to have a wife like you. Even 6 months after our wedding, our relationship is still so good that we have conversations like this today." I thought that our happy days would last for a long time, but then all of a sudden, those happy days vanished. My husband was already in the living room when I got home from work that day. Normally, the first one who got home would say, "Hey." However, there was a somewhat heavy silence on that day. I nervously talked to my husband, who was on his phone with a worried face. "Tom, hey, are you all right?" "Hey, Mary, I was completely out of it. What happened? You seemed terrified." "Oh, it's just my mother called. From your mom, Dad got involved in an accident." I couldn't keep up with the unexpected response, but we couldn't sit at home doing nothing. I immediately took my husband's hand. "What are you doing sitting there like that? We must visit our father now." "I'm afraid we can't." "No, why?" "There is no way we can meet him right now." "Does that imply he's not feeling well?" "Yeah. We don't have to come because Mom is going to stay with him until he gets better." "Oh no." His words made me realize there was nothing I could do at this point. I let go of his hand and sat down on the sofa. "I'm concerned if he's okay." Tom remained silent. My anxiety was heightened by his silence. My father-in-law had only recently turned 65 years old. On his days off, he had often taken good care of his health, going hiking and golfing. My husband works for my father-in-law, who owns a business. My husband must be perplexed that my father-in-law, who is also his father and the president of the company where he works, is experiencing this. I couldn't imagine him in his usual cheerful mood that day because he was so depressed. We were finally able to visit my father-in-law a week later. My father-in-law was lying in the hospital room with a powerless smile on his face when I arrived. As my husband, "Are you all right?" I asked my father-in-law. Apologetically, he scratched his head. "Mary, I'm sorry. I apologize for causing you concern." "I'm not upset. I'm relieved that you are safe." "I'm glad to hear that," and able to speak slowly. "I'm fine." "Oh, but please stay in bed for a while." My father-in-law smiled as he heard my words. I felt relieved when I saw his smile. My father-in-law suffered a spinal cord injury as a result of the accident and is still paralyzed. In terms of treatment, he would be hospitalized and undergo rehabilitation for about 2 months to assess his progress. Even after he was released from the hospital, he would require ongoing rehabilitation. Thomas decided to assume the presidency in place of his father while he is away. Although only for a short time, having my own husband as a president was unusual. My mother-in-law arrived in the hospital room while I was watching the conversation between my husband and father-in-law. She summoned me to a hospital room corner and spoke sarcastically to me. "Hey Mary, are you sure you're not mistaken?" "Mistaken?" I asked. "You are indeed. Just because Thomas is president doesn't mean you can't have fun, right? Please don't take advantage of Tom." "I don't have to be concerned about that because I'm employed and well compensated." "Sure. In the first place, you were aware that Tom was the boss's son. What a vile young lady." The mother-in-law smirked and said those words matter-of-factly, but it was her imagination, not reality. I didn't realize Tom was the president's son until we were dating for a while. As a result, my mother-in-law has been sarcastic toward me since the start of our marriage. I didn't want to be misunderstood and hated her one-sidedly, so I snapped at her on the spot. I didn't ask him for money. Tom's personality captivated me. "What? What are you on about? You speak to me as if you know who I am." "That is correct. Nothing would be misunderstood by you. I'm not sure whatever you say. I will never approve of you." "Oh no," my father-in-law, perhaps noticing her conversation, asked. "What's wrong?" "It's nothing," my mother-in-law said, glaring at me. My mother-in-law's words and actions made it clear that she adored Tom. She probably thought I'm a woman who approached her son for money, because we married after only a year of dating. Her attitude toward me has been ruthless since the moment I went to greet her at the wedding. But under those circumstances, I never expected my mother-in-law to be so sarcastic towards me. My husband also adored her troublingly. He said something like this a few days later. "Mary, you're aware that my father will be released from the hospital the month after next, right? We'll be returning to my parents' house at that time." "Wait a minute," I said. "Why are you suddenly saying so?" "That was suggested by Mom. This is a good time for us to move in together," she said. "Mom can't live with my father by herself, but it's not easy to do that so quickly." "What are you on about? We're all in this together," Mom says to me. "That is so thankful." I was perplexed, but he stated unequivocally, "Anyway, that is a decision. Simply get your belongings packed in time for the move-in." "Wait. I won't be able to commute to work if I move to your parents' house. We had trouble finding an apartment near workplaces. Isn't it only 5 stops by train from my parents' house? You're very fortunate to be able to sit on the train in the morning." It appeared that my husband and mother-in-law had already decided to live together. After that, I asked my husband several times if we wanted to avoid moving in together, but they paid no attention to me. My husband became more devoted to my mother-in-law than ever before. On the other hand, his words and actions towards me became increasingly harsh. He was giving me another nagging lecture every single day. "How's the packing coming along? I won't be able to take time off work on the day of the move, so you will fill in for me, okay? You will be in charge of all household duties and God's care. Don't make my mother suffer." Even before the move, I was mentally overwhelmed by such remarks. The company was in the midst of a busy season, and I was juggling work and moving preparations. I was physically and mentally exhausted. 2 months later, the move was completed successfully, and my father-in-law was released from the hospital. I hardly had time to breathe, but I started a new job as a caregiver for my father-in-law. I got up at 4 a.m. to prepare breakfast and do laundry. Following that, I flew to my father-in-law to give him a morning massage and change his clothes. I had to finish breakfast before my husband and mother-in-law did. Once I was done, I helped my father-in-law with his meals. I finally left for work after everyone had finished their breakfast. I've been able to get out of my bed on my own for a few days now. I've been waiting for the right moment, but I never imagined they'd get it just right. "What exactly do you mean?" My father-in-law then smiled and began to speak slowly. My father-in-law apparently wanted to do something about the fact that I was the only one being pushed around. I asked my mother-in-law and husband to run errands for me, but they ignored me completely. Furthermore, the company's executive director contacted him and reported that my husband, the company's acting president, was doing whatever he pleased. This trip too must have been paid for by the company. So my father-in-law contacted a company representative and asked him to monitor my husband's behaviors. Then his laziness at work was discovered, and everyone was furious. My father-in-law was supposed to return to the company as president after the new year. My husband was supposed to return to be an employee but decided to fire him. The home is also in the name of my father-in-law. While they were away, we changed the locks and devised the strategy to keep them out when they returned. I went to the city office to pick up 2 divorce papers. While they were there, a week has passed. The front door shook and the intercom rang repeatedly. My husband and mother-in-law, who had just returned from Hawaii, were attempting to open the door. I responded to them via the monitor. "Good to see you back. How was your journey?" "What the heck, Mary? Please open the door right now because I am unable to do so." "That's something I can't do. My father-in-law warned me not to open the door." "What? What are you talking about? Hey, did you have a good time? The trip was company funds. How did you find out about that?" "I don't know," my husband's expression said. I couldn't help but laugh as I watched their expressions on the monitor. My father-in-law, who was listening to the conversation, interrupted from the side. "Oh, you really embezzled my company's money, Dad. Why? You weren't supposed to be able to stand." "I've been able to stand for a few days now thanks to Mary's rehabilitation assistance, and the managing director has told me about your shady attitude at work." "Who's the managing director?" No, Dad, no. Nothing was done by me. Give it up. You've been fired, you inept piece of __. Pack your belongings and leave my office immediately." Through the monitor, my husband began to complain with tears in his eyes. "Mary, you won't leave me, will you?" I snapped back at him as he clutched at me. "What? What are you talking about? Do you know how I felt from the time you decided to live as parents without my permission until today? You took advantage of me, along with Mother, and forced me to take care of your father as a matter of course. Do you have any idea how hard it's been for me?" "Oh, calm down, Mary. I'm sorry. Your apology is worthless. When you left on your trip, I understood it's a waste of time to continue the family with you. I'll live on my own. I don't want a ___ like you." At my words, my husband backed away, dazedly. My mother-in-law hurried to support him. The scene was that of a painful mother and son. After that, my father-in-law opened the front door and confronted them with the divorce papers I had received. I had them fill out the divorce papers right then and there and kick them out and lock the door. My husband and mother-in-law pleaded repeatedly to open this door, but my father-in-law never responded to their pleas. I have not seen them since. Rumor has it that they are both unemployed and cannot afford to rent a room, so they are sleeping in a comic book cafe and working day jobs. It must be a world of difference from the life they had been leading. Well, the